Aloha and good afternoon. Thank you for watching This Is Now. More Lahaina residents will be allowed to return to their properties next week. Now, Maui County just announced restrictions will be lifted for residential zones 2C, 2D, and 2E. Those areas are Ku'uipo, A'a, and Lokia streets from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. both Monday and Tuesday of next week. Vehicle passes can be picked up at the Lahaina Civic Center or at the Kalana'o Maui building.
Now to Washington, D.C., where lawmakers launched their investigation into the Maui wildfire disaster. Hawaiian Electric and state energy officials were grilled on Capitol Hill today for answers into their decision-making process on the day of the deadly Lahaina fire. Hawaiian Electric CEO Shelly Kimura testified before the House Oversight and Investigations panel. She acknowledged that HECO's down lines caused the morning's initial fire on August 8th. Then at 3 p.m., what she called the afternoon fire began in the same area. Kimura also said that while 29,000 of the company's wooden power poles were assessed under its test and treat program, another 2,000 of them were not tested or treated for potential rot or termites for the past 10 years.
What was the decision-making process not to de-energize or turn the power off on these lines during that critical period?
So in 2019, our teams, understanding what happened in...
And I appreciate the history. What I'm trying to figure out is on that morning, what was your strategy? And were there people who were awake all night monitoring this storm to see what we could do? What's going on? Tell us and the American people what was going on that morning and why you didn't de-energize earlier.
Absolutely. I'm trying to explain to you why we didn't.
Well, I understand you're going through the process. I'm trying to figure out what happened that day back in August.
Yeah, so I'm trying to answer your question about why we didn't de-energize.
Okay.
Those decisions were made years before as part of a plan and as part of our protocols. And so I'm trying to help you understand what our protocols are in that kind of situation.
Also testifying today was Hawaii Public Utilities Commission Chairman Leo Asuncion Jr. and the Hawaii State Energy Office's Chief Energy Officer Mark Glick. We'll have much more on this story online and on later editions of Hawaii News Now.
And more Maui residents continue to share their frustration and concerns with community leaders. For more on this, let's send it over to Casey Lund.
Aloha from Lahaina. It's just a few miles down the road here in Kaltnapali at that Westin Resort Ballroom where hundreds of residents and their supporters packed in to share their voices and make sure that they were heard. For some of them, they felt it was the very first time that they were actually able to speak directly to their elected officials. This was the Government Relations, Ethics, and Transparency Commission for the Maui County Council. Again, we're focusing on sharing as many of those voices as we can. Some of those people were really concerned about how Lahaina will be rebuilt in the coming months and years. Others want to return to agriculture, less accommodations for tourists, but of course that is one of the biggest sticking points. And one of the things that is the biggest source of tension, as you might imagine, the restart of tourism in West Maui, which Governor Josh Green has set for October 8th. That's just 10 calendar days away. Hundreds of people told council members that the needs of residents should be prioritized ahead of visitors.
At the foundation of this, right, we already know we are in climate change. Like, this is it. Yeah, it's happening. And so if we are going to prepare to be resilient, our aina and our vai comes first. When you put that first, everything else will fall into place. We keep building businesses on the shoreline. That's not happening. just like Kumukanoi said, you got to think about why those people are there. Yeah. Is that a va'a? Yeah. That's going to go out there and educate our kiki and teach them how to malama kai, malama aina? Or are they just there to take money and send it off to somebody else? Aole hiki. Yeah. Our kaya ulu needs to stay here. Yeah. No push them out to Oluwalu or Ukumehame. Yeah. Where there are no resources. Yeah. They need to stay here. So we need to build that infrastructure. Something else that I heard earlier, bury those lines. Yeah. Bruh, the money that we spent right now, no matter that expensive, bruh, we spent more just trying to recover that. We have to change because we are dealing with this now.
Many of the people who spoke at yesterday's forum were calling simply for unity. Other speakers consistently asking for the state, county, and federal government to do more to make sure survivors' lives are more stable. Despite the governor's multiple statements that people will not be displaced after they've found refuge in some of these resorts and other places, many of the people who have lost their homes and are now staying in those temporary accommodations on the west side want better assurances that they won't be constantly moved around after that return to tourism on August 8th. We have heard from people on both sides of that issue. Some have lost everything, their homes and their businesses, and they say they need to bring visitors back as quickly as possible. Others say before making sure that everyone has a permanent place to stay and before those students return to the Lahaina classrooms, as we've covered, happening after fall break, that tourists should not be allowed back in West Maui. Of course, we will be here on October 8th to see how that process is going and how this community is coping with those additional people here in West Maui. Reporting in Lahaina, I'm Casey Lunn. For now, we'll send things back to you.
Well, they're not just for tsunamis. The next time you hear the state's outdoor warning sirens, and it's not a test, it could be for one of 7 different emergencies. Ben Gutierrez has more on the state's protocol for sounding the alarms.
When one of these emergency sirens goes off, what does it mean? And what should you do? Also, who made the decision to sound it? HECO says answering the first 2 questions is easy. However, a lot goes into the decision-making process, and often quickly. There are about 400 of these sirens around the state, including one in Lahaina, which wasn't activated when fire destroyed the town.
Had we sounded the siren that night, we're afraid that people would have gone Mauka.
Maui's emergency manager lost his job after that decision, but now everyone knows what the sirens are for.
The governor met with the mayors, and he met with all the emergency management administrators, and we talked through it, and we said, hey, here's what we're agreeing on across the board.
HECO Administrator James Burrows says the sirens can be activated by either the governor or the 4 county mayors, depending on the emergency, which could be a tsunami, hurricane, fire, a flood, a dam failure, hazardous materials, or a volcanic eruption.
All hazard alert, it goes off, check your radio, check your cell phone, turn your TV on, find out what's going on.
The state is also clarifying which agencies are responsible for specific emergencies. Burrows says that's always been the case, but now it's part of official protocol.
It's the same, we just wanted to share it, make sure everybody's on the same sheet of music.
The Lahaina fire has also accelerated efforts to advance the siren program and to make sure they're working.
I want to say about 95% are solar powered, so they're not relying on electricity. Some problems we're having is the batteries aren't lasting, so there's some replacement, some maintenance needed.
And after taking a break this past month, all those sirens will be tested statewide, including West Maui and Lahaina, starting in October. Ben Gutierrez, Hawaii News Now.
An error on the death certificate of a Maui wildfire victim is causing their family more heartache and pain. Our Chelsea Davis explains some of the mix-up.
Yeah, Donna Gomes lived at the bottom of Lahaina Luna Road, and her family members say that's where authorities told them they found her body. But when they received her death certificate a few weeks ago, the location of where she died shows an address about a mile away.
It's been hard because we haven't had time to even fully grieve her.
71-year-old Donna Gomes was the matriarch, as tough as they come with a heart of gold. Her death from the August 8th Lahaina wildfire shattered her whole family.
I saw a video that went viral, and on that video, what looked to be my mom on Lahaina Luna Road I was for certain that that was her. A lot of other family members agreed that was her. They said that my DNA matched 99.5% someone who was in the backyard. So I was a bit disturbed because I was for certain that on Lahaina Luna Road, that was her. No, in the backyard. Then when we get the death certificate reads an address that was not even affected by the fire.
Now, most death certificates don't have a location of death, but those who died in the Lahaina wildfire do, because it was a mass casualty event. Donna lived at 359 Lahaina Luna Road. The location of her death on her death certificate shows she died at 755 Kuialua Street,
which is like 10 blocks up in Kilauea, Mauka.
Right, so it's like, how would she have gotten there on her 2 feet? Because her car was across the street, which burned, and that place was not affected, yet you found her remains at that address. So it was a bit disturbing to me. Like, now we're uncertain, like, do the remains, the ashes that we have, is that really my mom?
The Hawaii Department of Health said it will ensure that the family of Donna Gomes will not be charged for the corrected death certificate. But the family wants an apology and confirmation that the ashes they have really belongs to their beloved matriarch.
To me, it was just complete negligence, you know, like, you could have just took the 2 minutes to double check, and then we probably wouldn't be having these doubts.
Family is asking all other family members who lost a loved one in last month's Lahaina wildfire to please double check their death certificates. They said they don't want anyone going through what they're going through right now. Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News Now.
And now to a major change of plans. The Polynesian Voyaging Society announced that Hokulea will come back to Hawaii from California in the wake of the devastating Maui fires. CEO Nainoa Thompson says Lahaina is a voyaging powerhouse and that the canoe needs to be here.
The level of hurt that's happening in our home is something I can't comprehend. All I know is that we got to come home.
Hokulea will return from San Diego in late December. It's unknown how long Hokulea will stay in Hawaii, but Thompson says the Moananui Kale voyage around the Pacific will still be completed. Thompson also cited weather patterns and unusually warm water in the Pacific, which increases the risk of hurricanes. A man accused in the deadly shootout at Waianae Boat Harbor appeared in court today. 18-year-old Javen Lopez has been charged with 3 counts of attempted murder. 2 men were killed and a woman was critically injured. Lopez also suffered a gunshot wound. His bail is now set at $2 million.
St. Louis School is joining settlement talks to end a high-profile sex assault lawsuit. The school was the only holdout after former football stars Jaden Delora and Kamo'i Latu agreed to an undisclosed financial settlement with a woman who says the players assaulted her on campus in 2018. A district court judge agreed with St. Louis School's attorneys that the players should pay a bigger share of what the woman is asking for. It was revealed in court that Delora and Latu make thousands of dollars a month in college football sponsorship deals. Latu's attorney says he doesn't plan to offer more than what was already agreed upon.
We want to end this if we can, but they got everything they were supposed to get out of us and probably more.
Would you say that in mediation, you are not willing to come forward with more?
I gave them everything I had, and probably more so. We had a motive to get rid of that and offer what we did.
Mediation is scheduled for January. A paroled convict is under arrest in Baltimore, accused of killing a young CEO in her apartment building. As Mike Helgren reports, he may be connected to another violent crime just days earlier.
Baltimore police announced the arrest of a suspect in a murder that has shocked the city.
We're going to put this individual, this violent criminal offender, repeat offender, back in jail where he belongs.
32-year-old Jason Billingsley is charged with first-degree murder in the death of Pava Lapere, a young tech CEO found dead in her apartment complex on Monday.
I hope this sends a message to everybody else who likes to commit these kind of cowardly horrendous acts to know that we will not tolerate it and we will pull you off of the streets of Baltimore.
Billingsley is a convicted felon and registered sex offender. He was released last year in an earlier sexual assault case after serving a fraction of his sentence. He's also a suspect in a rape and arson last week, which police described as a targeted attack.
He worked at that building. He was familiar with the victims. We didn't think at that point that he was committing random acts.
They were already searching for Billingsley when LaPere was reported missing. She was the 26-year-old founder of a tech startup.
Really, her mission in life was to just bring people together, and I miss her.
The world. At a Wednesday night vigil, friends and family remembered her as a leader focused on building community.
We're going to take her away from Baltimore, but her presence will never leave here.
Police are not disclosing details of LaPere's death, but believe she was killed 3 days before her body was discovered, and hope the arrest will bring some peace to the community. Mike Helgren, CBS News, Baltimore.
In news out of Washington, D.C., we're getting closer to another government shutdown. But what exactly does that mean for you? NBC correspondent Noah Pransky explains.
There is so much noise coming out of Washington.
Prevent a government shutdown.
The government could shut down.
Avoid a government shutdown.
But here's everything you actually need to know about a possible government shutdown. How does it affect me? Well, if you're one of the millions of employees furloughed in a shutdown, from civilian defense staffers to medical researchers, you won't be paid and you won't be working after September 30th. Employees deemed essential won't be paid either, but they'll still have to work, like service members, Border Patrol agents, and TSA screeners. They'll get back pay eventually, but airport absenteeism was an issue during the last shutdown, snarling traffic for all of us. So be prepared for it to happen again this fall. Delays could also strike U.S. passport offices, so plan for an already bad backlog there to get even worse. Plan to visit a national park or monument? It's possible some will close while others will stay open, just without access to welcome centers or bathrooms. And be warned, it is a very long drive across Yellowstone without a bathroom. Most government watchdogs will also be sidelined, including those who inspect our food, our water, our workplace safety, and our investments. What isn't affected? Social Security checks, Medicare and Medicaid, and the U.S. Postal Service. Now, why again are they doing this? So there was a 5-way budget deal cut in June to avoid default. But now as we approach the shutdown, one of the parties, House Republicans, is demanding to renegotiate. It's not all House Republicans, just a small group who are blocking Congress from doing any business until their demands are met on major immigration reforms, severe cuts to government programs, and less aid for Ukraine as it defends itself against Russia. None of those positions have broad support in Congress. So why can't House Speaker Kevin McCarthy just ignore this tiny fringe? In short, he wants to save his job. Flashback to January, when it took 15 votes and 5 days just for Republicans to pick a leader. McCarthy won the vote by conceding power to members of the far-right Freedom Caucus. But fast forward to today, and without some of those rebels, he doesn't have enough Republican votes to keep the government running. At the same time, they've warned him his job of Speaker is done if he cuts a deal with Democrats. So despite only representing about 5% of the House, the holdouts have the power to shut down a huge chunk of the government. Finally, what happens next? McCarthy has tried other concessions to try and get the far-right rebels on board, like agreeing to hold impeachment proceedings for President Biden. But once the government's shut down, there's no telling when it will reopen. The last shutdown, initiated by President Trump nearly 5 years ago, lasted more than a month and ultimately did not produce the border wall funding he was demanding. Noah Pransky, NBC News.
Hawaii's new COVID counts have been released, and they show a drop in confirmed cases in the last week. The state is averaging 111 new COVID patients daily. That's down 14 from the previous week. And the test positivity rate also dropped to about 10%. However, flu cases are up to their highest point since before the pandemic, with nearly 11,000 cases so far this year. Doctors suggest getting updated vaccines as soon as possible. Let's take you live outside now for a look through the eyes of our tower cam. This is, you can see Pool Waianae, commonly known as Punch Bowl, there in the distance. It is a lovely day. Our Billy V will have more on your forecast right after this short break.
Thank you very much on this Thursday midday. Just a reminder, coming up this afternoon about 3 o'clock, we're going to have a high tide. That's a pretty good high tide. So if you're with the kids and you're going to be at the beach today, make sure that you're in the water with them. North Shore is going to be 2 to 4 on the way down, 1 to 3 over on the west side, 2 to 4 in the town spots, 3 to 5 kind of choppy on the east side. That is a trade wind swell. Small craft advisories are in effect for waters around Maui and Hawaii Island. Pretty sunny across the board, and those winds are going to be staying consistent about 10 to 20 miles per hour as we go throughout the day today. Let's take a look at the 7-day forecast. Easterly winds 15 to 25, depending on where you are. If you're in the valleys, it'll definitely be about 25 or so. Friday, we start to back off on the winds by Saturday and Sunday. 10 to 15 miles per hour. Enhanced showers are possible due to Tropical Depression 14E and an upper trough that's going to be near the Hawaiian Islands up to the north. We get to light winds as we get into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So that's going to be a little bit of a change in the weather, a little bit of everything as we go throughout the next 7 days. Get the latest on air online on your mobile device and at hawaiinewsnow.com.
Now to entertainment news. Beloved Harry Potter star Michael Gambon has died. His family said in a statement the actor died peacefully in a hospital with his wife and son at his side after a bout with pneumonia. Gambon was previously best known for his role of Hogwarts headmaster Albus Dumbledore in 6 of the 8 Harry Potter films. However, he also had an extensive catalog of work across TV, film, and radio. He won multiple Best Actor awards at the British Academy Television Awards and was nominated for 2 Emmys. He was 82 years old.
Now to last night's Republican debate. 7 GOP candidates met for their second matchup without the party's clear frontrunner, former President Donald Trump. Jabs were exchanged on stage as the candidates tried to break out from the pack. Garrett Hake has the highlights.
Overnight, 7 Republican presidential candidates facing off in a contentious and at times chaotic debate. The frontrunner, former President Trump, skipping the showdown to campaign in Michigan. His rivals Chris Christie and Ron DeSantis repeatedly noting his absence.
Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt.
Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on this stage and defending your record. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
On abortion, DeSantis demanded Mr. Trump explain his recent comments on Meet the Press, when the former president criticized the Florida governor for signing a 6-week abortion ban.
I think what he did is a terrible thing and a terrible mistake.
To try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing. I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time.
Former Vice President Mike Pence taking aim at President Biden for joining striking auto workers in Michigan.
Joe Biden doesn't belong on a picket line, he belongs on the unemployment line.
And Vivek Ramaswamy, who tangled with rivals in the first debate, acknowledging his critics.
You see a young man who's in a bit of a hurry, maybe a little ambitious, bit of a know-it-all, it seems at times.
Still, his rivals pounced. Tim Scott seizing on his business dealings.
I can't imagine how you could say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden.
And Nikki Haley targeting his use of TikTok.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say.
We asked Ramaswamy about that exchange after the debate. The core argument that Nikki Haley seemed to have against you, the core argument that
she has a grudge against me that I don't have a grudge against her.
It's a one-way grudge. She can't trust you, that voters can't trust you. What do you say to that?
She said I made her dumber. And
well, there was that too.
That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Well, we had some good news really quickly, Ash. I think we can mention it.
So the last supermoon of the year will peak at midnight tonight, Hawaii time. It'll be closer to Earth than usual and will seem bigger and brighter. This version is called the Harvest Moon, a nod to the fall season.
So if you're out and about, take a moment, look up at the sky and snap some pictures. Send them our way. We'd love to see it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great afternoon.